million tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, Dancy, all around. Throw as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver, you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, we're back with another episode of Around the Indoor Football World. As much as I hate to say it, we're closing in on the end of the indoor season for the most part. IFL is about to wrap up their season. TAL wraps up this week. NAL has already been done for a little while, and AFL has already finished up as well. So we're kind of running out of leagues to talk about, but yet here we are, one more week. TJ, how you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Once again, sorry everybody about the delays. I had some computer issues right before we hopped on here. My computer decided to reboot out of the middle of nowhere. But if you're tuning in, we really appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, follow us on all our favorite social media platforms, as we are basically everywhere. Before we get into this, I wanted to shout out something TJ recently did that I kind of delayed a little bit, but we recently published an article, actually 20 minutes ago roughly, about a Q&A session that you had with Justin Coble of the Harrisburg Stampede. Is there any little snippets you want to talk to us a little bit about in that one before we get going here?
First and foremost, I want to thank him again for doing the Q&A. I had a great time in the interview. He definitely talks some really juicy behind-the-scenes stuff that you normally don't see as just a fan watching it on TV. And he also talks a little bit about how the whole merger with the NAL went down. So it's definitely a good read for anyone who wants to see some of the inside world of arena and indoor football.
Absolutely. Obviously, I've read it. I think it's a great article, and I'm very excited to see what you guys have to say about it and your thoughts on it, because it definitely peeled back the curtain on a couple things for me as well. And, typically there isn't much that we aren't at least somewhat privy to going on behind the scenes at this point. And he managed to show us a little bit. So it's interesting to see how some things came together this offseason, and was very informative as far as I'm concerned. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check it out right after this episode. A little shameless plug there. But this is a little cyclical cycle here we got going on. So if you're not watching, we're hoping you're reading. And if you're not reading, we're hoping you're watching. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into the topics for today. Obviously, the biggest news as of late coming out of the National Arena League has been some of the coaching hires, which there's been some decently big names brought into the NAL. And the first one that I wanted to discuss with you is former FCF head coach Sean Leota. He's a two-time NAL champion, I believe, before his time with the FCF. He has returned to the NAL as the offensive coordinator for the Wheeling Miners. What are your thoughts on this move for the Wheeling after such an impressive season last year? Do you think this makes them stronger? Or, maybe will there be some continuity issues there?
I think it's definitely an upgrade. I mean, you look at his resume, and it goes on since technically, like 1999. He's, like you said, a two-time champion. He was also two-time coach of the year. So, I mean, it just bolsters an already really strong team and staff to maybe even higher heights this season. They're definitely going to be bringing it in 2025.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how this all plays out. And I would be shocked if there isn't at least one or two, FCF guys that turn up on that roster. by the end of the season. Hopefully all those former FCF players that are still out there playing are kind of reaching out and trying to get their foot in the door with Wheeling, because that's a great organization, and it looks like a team that's going to be around for many, many years to come. They definitely do things very professionally. In fact, while I was scrolling through looking at all their social media stuff, trying to find the coaching announcement, I was impressed. They haven't really gone quiet at all. There's been almost constant contact coming out, whether it's just videos of last season, highlights, talking about Sean Leota, whether it's a graphic for him or a video discussing his background and stuff like that. So, definitely make sure you're following the Wheeling Miners if you're a fan of the franchise. They're doing a great job of keeping you informed, keeping you engaged throughout the off season, which, you can give us a little bit more insight on that, given that you've been there as a coach. But talk to me about how difficult it can be, from a franchise's standpoint, to keep fans engaged when your off season is basically, 8 months.
Yeah, not only is it a long off season, but it's also not like the NFL where there's constant coverage and everything else. It's literally, unless you put it out there, you're probably not getting it out there. So their presence in social media, keeping fans engaged and everything, it's really spot on what you should be doing. I know we did it a lot in Reading when I was there. We would constantly be putting 2-3 posts up a week from our page, just to get fan engagement, fan excitement. We'd even ask them questions like, "Hey, what do you want to see at this next home game?" Or who do you think is we sometimes we do almost like toying questions like, "Hey, who would you start at this position?" Just to, again, just get engagement going. And it always seemed to work, and it was really awesome to see.
No, I firmly agree. Actually, it's something we've talked about a lot on our ELF show, that there are some teams that don't really engage with their fans much, and they're suffering attendance-wise because of it. It seems goofy, but at this point, we're in a world where fans want their info and they want it now. They want it yesterday if they could get it. So it's definitely a situation where the more you're in the public eye, the better it is for your team long run. So I think that what they're doing is incredibly smart. And like I said, go check them out right now on Facebook, Twitter, all the major platforms. I believe they're on Instagram as well. They are doing a great job of, kind of having some social media engagement there. And it's awesome to see. But moving on to the next announcement, and this is a team that has just recently leaked, hasn't even technically been announced by the league yet, but that's the Shreveport Rougarou. They announced Jermaine Hampton as defensive coordinator, which I think this is a great hire. How familiar are you with Jermaine Hampton?
I remember he played for the Indianapolis Colts, and then he's also spent the last, I believe, 2 years with the Iowa Barnstormers in the IFL as well. So he brings a lot of good, not only playing, but also coaching experience. Iowa has always been a sound franchise in terms of development. So I think this is a good hire, especially for a new fledgling team. They're definitely, if they keep doing moves like this, they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with this upcoming season.
I completely agree. I think he's a great coach, and in my personal opinion, I believe he's overqualified for the position he was hired in, and that's always a good thing to have if you have the correct chemistry between your coaching staff. I know that can get ugly if a guy's trying to undermine the head coach, but from all accounts, I don't believe Hampton's that type of guy. I know he wants to be a head coach at some point. I know a lot of coaches I respect have really spoken highly about him as a person, as a coach. From Tay Brooks to Dave Mogensen and multiple other people that I've spoken with over the years, they've always held him in high regards. I want to say that he was considered for some AFL opportunities this past season, but ultimately did not end up the head coach there. Probably best for him in hindsight, unfortunately, because some of the teams that were looking his direction were not that stable and ultimately ended up folding before the end of the year. But, hopefully now we see him land with a team that's going to be stable, that's going to have a good future, and hopefully we'll have a good fan engagement, interaction when they first launch. Excuse my brain fart there. But definitely excited to see that move. I actually recommended him to one of the teams that was looking for a head coach this past season because I have such a large amount of respect for him and his background and his experience. You know, because he's been at the NFL level, he's been at the CFL level, and he's played in the arena leagues. So I mean, always good thing to have on a coaching staff when you can pull on first-hand information. But we're not done yet. There's one more coaching hire. Carolina Cobras announced Mike Bonner as defensive coordinator as well. So 3 coordinators in basically the last 2 weeks, I believe, that have been announced since we did our last show. What are your thoughts on Mike Bonner being hired by Carolina?
That's another good hire. He has a lot of experience, both as a coordinator and head coach. Let me see. Sorry, I pulled up the stats for him.
You're good.
Yeah, you know, he's been an offensive assistant, offensive coordinator, head coach for a handful of teams. Success for the most part has always seemed to follow him. So, and you know, this Cobra team, man, they're really amping up for this upcoming season. You know, this past season, they kind of hit the skids as of late. They were, with the way everything unraveled with the NAL late in the season, it kind of became basically the end of the season became almost like a play-in tournament, if you will. And unfortunately, the Cobras weren't able to get that win that they needed to get into the championship game. So they're coming back with a vengeance, I think a chip on their shoulder. And not only him as a coach, but they're also signing a bunch of different players to really bolster up the roster. They're definitely they're gonna be a good team in the NAL this year.
I agree. And I know there's some obvious budgetary concerns, which I mean have been fairly public about the ownership changes and whatnot. So I mean, I think there's going to be a little bit different approach to this offseason, but at the same time, I don't think that that you should sleep on the Cobras at any point. They're going to do everything they can to make sure they're competitive every year. I know for a fact that missing the playoffs last season definitely left a bad taste in their mouth. That was the first season in franchise history that they've actually missed the playoffs. So that is not something Coach Negron wants to see a repeat of. I can tell you that very confidently because we've spoken about it several times. But yeah, I mean, great hire here. Mike Bonner, to my knowledge, is a local guy there out in North Carolina. So always like to hear that, you know, a local guy's getting an opportunity with the team in his area, but then also he probably is going to bring with him his own following. You know, obviously people know who Mike Bonner is. As soon as I saw who, you know, they had hired him, it immediately rang bells in my head in terms of where he's been in the past and, you know, what he's been able to do in previous franchises. So definitely like to see this hire. I love, like I said, that local flair that they're bringing in. But at the same time, I think that he's a great coach. So this isn't strictly because they don't have to house the guy. You know, he actually deserves to be there. And honestly, it might be another coordinator who is, for lack of a better term, overqualified for the position. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be there, but he's got that head coaching experience. He could have easily been, you know, a head coaching candidate for many different other franchises before being hired. So definitely would love to see exactly how this pans out for Carolina. And I have an inkling that we're going to get an offensive coordinator named here very soon. But that's basically all the information I can give you on that. But it'll be interesting to see exactly who they bring in opposite of him and who they bring back from the 2024 season, given the way that the season ended for them. But there's also a little bit more information coming out about the Cobras. They have already begun signing free agents for the 2025 season, including Brentley Allen and David Brown Jr. If you're a Cobras fan, you know that David Brown name. He was with the team last season, did some good things towards the end of the year. Fairly young, but it sounds like he's got a really good opportunity ahead of him in terms of potentially being a starter in 2025. What are your thoughts on first of all, moves coming already in August, and second of all, the 2 players that were signed, if you have any knowledge of them?
It's like I said, man, they're locked and loaded and already planning on a championship run for next season. But you know, to re-sign a player who's already been in your system for a year and he's being, like you said, being called, an up and comer, has a shot to win the starting job this year. He's already been in the system, so he knows, basically the culture of the team. It's definitely going to strengthen their roster, in my opinion. It also brings some continuity to the roster as well. You're not just signing a bunch of guys and making a super team that has to spend maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks gelling together. The more guys you can bring back that you already know well and know your team well is just going to help you instantly hit the ground running next season.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's one of the things that I think Coach Negron is really good at doing. The past couple seasons that he's been there, we've seen players come back year over year over year and kind of build that continuity that you're speaking of. And you would know all too well, how big of an effect that can be on a roster, given that you've coached, in the NAL at one point. So definitely want to shout that out, because you would know a lot better than I would. But definitely excited to see David Brown back, in my personal opinion. I mean, obviously, given that we do the Cobras coaches show, I got to know David a little bit last season. I think he's a great kid. I think he's got a great head on his shoulders, and he ultimately is looking at this as his, quote unquote NFL. He takes this very seriously. He wants to be the best possible player he can be, and I'm excited for what's to come for David and for the Cobras in 2025. I've even heard Coach Negron slip that David might eventually work his way into that wide receiver 1 role, which that would be quite the climb from last season for David. But I know he's got all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of him putting it together. So the opportunity's at hand, David, if you're watching. So make sure you're coming prepared this season. The last big piece of news before we get into our other leagues for the day is obviously the retirement of Tommy Armstrong. This did not go unnoticed by the Nebraska Cornhuskers community. I posted something on Twitter, and it has since gotten about 30,000 views, just because of who Tommy is, the type of guy he is, and how ingrained he is out there in Nebraska in terms of the overall culture and really the fan engagement community. So it's kind of interesting to see him kind of walk away after 2 full seasons without a loss. But what are your thoughts on Tommy Armstrong walking away, and what do you think the Beef do at quarterback, if you have any idea?
Well, first off, what a way to go out, 2 undefeated seasons and back-to-back championships. That's beyond the dream for any athlete. I just wish he felt like playing a little bit longer, because he was so much fun to watch, but definitely going to go down in Nebraska history books, both as a Husker and with the Nebraska Danger as well. If I were, I don't know, to replace him, I almost want to say maybe bring in a veteran that has a few years under his belt, that can kind of almost be a bridge quarterback, and then bring in another young guy, maybe have him, learn under him, be a mentor. But that would be my opinion, because it's going to be really hard to replace a guy like Armstrong.
I agree. And I mean, he'll probably be remembered as one of the greatest indoor football quarterbacks ever at this point, just based on what he's been able to do over the past couple seasons. But many will forget that, this guy has over 10,000 some passing yards as a quarterback in the indoor leagues. And that's not even considering what he was able to do at Nebraska before that, and, multiple other leagues as well. It's crazy to see how far his journey's come. And I know that he's a big family man, so I'm excited for him to be able to kind of spend more time with his family, his wife. So hopefully, whatever he does next, he finds lots of success. But that's kind of the guy he is. His attitude, his positivity is infectious. I got to know him quite well in 2023 when we worked with the Beef, and it was a great pleasure getting to know him, because honestly, to me, Tommy is the epitome of what you want as a starting quarterback. He's not an imposing presence in the fact that he's going to strike fear in the guys that are around him, but he garners respect without having to command that respect. And it's always been something that I've admired from afar. And I think it's a big reason why Omaha has found so much success. Him and Mike Tatum are just those guys. They don't necessarily need to yell at you all the time. for you to understand that what they're saying matters, and you need to be focused and, coherent in everything you do when it comes to what they're saying, because they're leading you the right direction. So Tommy, if you're moving into coaching or whatever you're doing, we hope you find nothing but success. And, thank you for everything you did for us here and ultimately for the Beef as well. It's been a lot of fun to watch over the past couple seasons. Hopefully you can find lots of enjoyment in your retirement, and hopefully we see you back on the field someday as a coach. One more quick shout out about the Cobras. We will have an episode coming up next Sunday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, to kind of give you guys the rundown on everything that's been going on with the Cobras for the off season so far. We know, again, the season just ended about 2 months ago, but we'll kind of give you an update on the coaches that are coming back, the coaches who are hired, like Mike Bonner, some of the players that have been signed, and there might be even some special announcements. So I definitely recommend that you tune into that episode, and you can catch us live on the Cobras page, 9:30 p.m. Eastern next Sunday. So just keep that in the back of your minds. But moving on to the next subject, before we get into that, I'm going to run a quick commercial, and then we'll be right back to talk the Arena League and the huge upset that came out of last weekend, which I don't think many of us saw coming.
Follow your passion first. First. It's the most fun thing in the world. You get up in the morning excited about what you're doing. And you got to be really honest with yourself about it. And you got to sit there and ask yourself, okay, what?
Shout out to Kevin Estime with Estime for Fitness and D Brown with D Place, both great sponsors. And we always like to support guys who are supporting minor league football. D Brown's a semi-pro coach and very involved in multiple different aspects of high school football. And then Kevin Estime's a current player. So not two better companies you can go support today and, support them in their pursuits, supporting players, which is always awesome. So to go ahead and get into the next subject here, the 7-1 Kansas City Goats fell to the 1-7 Iowa Woo by 1 point. I literally can go back over 20 years and I don't remember ever seeing a game that shocked me more than this one. And quite honestly, I probably would not have even caught the end of the game if it wasn't for, my buddy Western Address. Make sure you go check out his website as well. But he was doing updates on Twitter. I realized what the score was, and I was like, holy cow, the Woo were beating the Goats. I need to go over there and tune in and see what's going on. And sure enough, they had a healthy lead over the Goats, and the Goats kind of came back there at the end, which is a testament to their coaching staff, but unfortunately fell just short. So obviously, I know we've talked about this off camera quite a bit, TJ. What are your thoughts on a 7-1 team falling to a 1-7 team?
I love it. It's sports is all about parity, and that's there right there. It was kind of reminiscent of probably going on about 8 or 9 years ago now, when the Washington Valor kind of did the same thing in the Arena Football League. They were like a 2 or 3 win team all season. But again, all teams in the league, because there was only 4 teams at the time, got in the playoffs, and you never know what's going to happen. That's why you play the game. Shout out to their coaching staff. They spent the 8 games in the regular season. They scored roughly 350 points all season long. And then you come out and you drop, I believe, 59 in one game. Just great game planning to a T, great execution by the players. And what a game for the league as a whole, because it went down to the wire and it was a massive upset and it brought a lot of attention to the league. I saw a lot of stuff on social media, people posting like, really, the Ghosts went down? It was almost a foregone conclusion that the Ghosts were just going to steamroll and take care of year one. And, here come the Woo, so it was a really great game for the league. And it does, again, go to show you cannot underestimate heart and preparation by any team.
100% agree. And I got a little clip here. This was sent from the Iowa Woo.
Well, that's the story of my life. No respect. No respect.
Just kidding. But the Iowa Woo, came out of left field, 1-7 record, defeated the 7-1 Kansas City Goats. And just on cue, our buddy Cody from the KC area jumps on. So, Cody, I want to get your opinion on what happened with KC, and just so you're aware, you are muted currently.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't necessarily watch the game until the upset kind of started happening. I tuned in for the fourth quarter, and they tried to make a comeback. I think they scored there with a little bit of time left, but at that point they scored with 9 seconds left to try and do something, and then after that Iowa was just able to kind of kill the rest of the time. So yeah, it kind of sucks. It just kind of goes to show you that just because you give everyone a playoff chance doesn't mean that you're the best team in the playoffs. Anyone can get hot at the right time, and Iowa's going to pull a Washington Valor 2.0 if they can pull off a championship.
Yeah, it's funny how that was actually the main comment that I saw all over social media was, oh, they pulled a Washington Valor. And I had to actually go back and look and be like, oh, okay, now it makes a lot more sense. But that was, unexpected to say the least. On the other hand, the other game this past weekend was probably the expected result. The Duluth Harbor Monsters ultimately went out and won and defeated, I'm blanking their name at the moment. I apologize.
Lunkers.
Thank you. The Ozark Lunkers. I have no idea why I blanked that. They went out and defeated the Ozark Lunkers and in handed fashion, which I wanted to bring that up for another purpose. Ozark has kind of come out with a post as of late apologizing to their fans about their first season. Not because the fans weren't there, not because they did a bad job, but because they weren't able to cement their first season with any sort of playoff success, and they finished out the season with a 5-game losing streak. So I wanted to get your guys' takes on your thoughts on that statement. Do you like it by the team that they're coming out and saying, hey, we didn't live up to our own expectations. We know we didn't live up to yours. Please stick with us for the future. This wasn't good enough type idea. Let's go to TJ first.
Personally, I like it. It almost brings bonding to the fans. I'm sure a lot of the fans that invested their heart and soul into this first season, were kind of disappointed how they fizzled out. But it does show that they are committed to the community, and they do feel, genuinely just as upset as the fans do that they weren't able to at least get to the championship game, if not win it as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting approach, but Cody, I wanted to get your thoughts as well.
Thoughts on the statement? I don't necessarily have an opinion. Like TJ kind of said, it's kind of cool to connect with the fans and make sure, hey, this isn't good enough. Is it a little weird because, it was just after one season, you don't really know what to expect, and we've even talked about it, whether or not the league's going to stick around for years 2, 3, 4. What have you. So I understand both sides of the coin here. I personally don't have a problem with it. It's pretty much your management and your front office getting out in front saying, hey, the people that expected more from us, you're going to get more from us, and here's how we're going to do it. And yeah, I don't really see an issue with it, to be honest with you. Now, if it was a heartbreaking championship loss by 45 points, I could possibly see something, but I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, like you said, it's season number 1. I don't know that anybody had expectations that this team was going to go out and necessarily run the table because we didn't know. We had no idea what was going to come from any of these other teams either. They were all brand new. So with that in mind, I think that it's admirable that they were willing to admit that they had made some mistakes along the way and that they weren't able to find the winning season that they had hoped for their fans in season 1. But I think it was a little bit premature. I don't think anybody's looking at that organization and saying, "Oh, you know what? Those Ozarks, they don't know what they're doing down there." Like it to me, I feel like it's a good look for fans, but I think it was a little unnecessary. I think they're being a little hard on themselves over there. I think they deserve to kind of sit back and look at the successes that they had. The very clean streams, the games that were played very well. To my knowledge, there wasn't really any large controversy behind the scenes that we were talking about on here. And typically, if you can make it through your first season as a new arena football league, you don't have any teams fold, you don't have really any major broadcast issues. That's a win in my mind. And to me, the arena league should be very thrilled with how their first season went. And real quick, I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. I mean, do you think that the TAL will be back next season and ultimately for seasons to come, TJ?
I can definitely see them, especially since they already announced expansion franchises. Definitely a year 2. I think next year will be the real deciding factor on if this thing continues to get off the ground and gain more popularity. And I would say next year is a guarantee, but year 3 is up in the air. It all depends on how much interest there still is, how much fan engagement. Obviously, how many seats get filled in the arenas, things like that. But definitely a year 2 at least.
I would agree. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where you've already got expansion franchises announced. We're going to see how they play. You have to bring in 2 new teams, players, coaches, owners, have you. The novelty is still kind of there, but it's also kind of worn off in the markets, the 4 markets that you started with. So it's not just can we get fans to those new franchises, can we retain the fans? I mean, you look at something like Iowa going 1-7, but if they bring home a championship, that could help out their fan base a little bit. Vice versa for Kansas City, you went 7-1 and built up a fan base, but yeah, you lost out, so you have a chance to go win a championship next year. I think that bodes well for both markets, and then obviously you look at Ozark, who's already talking to their fans via press releases, and then you look at Duluth, who's still in the playoffs. So it's just kind of along those lines of, are you going to be able to retain the fans? Are you be able to get new fans? And ultimately, that's going to be what gets you the bottom line dollar number amount.
Agreed. And honestly, that's another reason why I think this league has so much promise. I think they're being very smart about their expansion. Like we talked about, they've already announced 2 franchises, which we've discussed on the show before. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts on those expansion franchises, go back, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll see the episode where we discuss them heavily. Great markets to pick. I think that they're putting in a lot of thought to the ultimate cost of a franchise in these cities that they're going to, and the cost of travel as well, which I think bodes well for the future. If you can keep costs low, you're going to draw in, ownership groups that maybe wouldn't consider, the NAL or the IFL due to the cost of operations in those leagues, which is, from what I understand, substantially higher. So with that thought process, I think they're being smart. And then, like you said, the novelty of their 6-man football where everybody's an eligible receiver, it definitely is something it's a sight to behold. So you definitely want to watch it. I mean, even if you're a fan of traditional indoor football, this is not that. So with that in mind, I mean, if you like the IFL and you like the NAL, I highly recommend you check out a TAL game, but go into it with an open mind. It is not what you would expect from the NAL or the IFL, and it's definitely its own breed, but it's a lot of fun to watch. Creates very interesting games. But with all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move on to the big news, which is, of course, the IFL championship games are in the rear view at this point, and we had some very interesting games. Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said Green Bay was going to win this one.
I did. I did say that they were going to win it, but yeah, hey, people can be wrong. People can be wrong. Massachusetts was the better team. That's just kind of how it came out. They enforced their will and just they put it to Green Bay. Green Bay didn't really have too much of an answer, and that pick six there by Matt Elam there late in the first half just kind of sealed the deal, and they just kind of coasted into the second half.
Agreed. And I wanted to say that you mentioned that they were going to be the winners for a reason, because during your preview video, if you go back and watch that, you will mention that Massachusetts, if they want to win this game, has to lean on Jimmy Robinson. And what did Massachusetts do? They went out and ran the ball quite a bit with Jimmy Robinson and found victory. So while you were wrong in your pick for the winner, you were definitely right about that. I just wanted to throw that out there. TJ, were you surprised to see Green Bay ultimately fall to Massachusetts and watch as the 3 seed defeated the 1 seed?
I wasn't necessarily surprised, but in the kind of dominant way they did it was kind of surprising. It's like Cody said, the defensively, man, when they returned that pick six, I was just like, oh man, they should have this in the bag. Like, there's no way, even in indoor football, you give up, that big of a lead. They came out playing, they came out flying, just like 2 weeks ago against Frisco. They got the hot seat, right? Or they have the hot ticket right now, and they're hoping to ride it obviously through tonight. It's going to be a good game regardless, in my opinion. The Rattlers are a really tough team to keep down though. So it's probably going to be their toughest game of the season, as it should be, because it's the championship.
Agreed. And it's going to be a great game. I mean, you couldn't really ask for a better championship game to come from the 4 opponents that were left in the conference championships, if you ask me. I know we spent some time breaking this down last week, so for anybody watching saying, hey, these guys talked about it last week, I know, I'm aware. I just wanted to throw that back out there for anybody who did not catch the episode last week. I can't expect all of you guys to tune in every week. So moving on to the game that we did not discuss last week because it had not taken place yet. This game came out of left field for me. I expected this to be a close game. It was not that at all. It was actually very shocking in my personal opinion. But we'll go to our IFL expert, Cody, here first. I mean, Cody, I know you talked about the Rattlers being the team to beat in this game, but did you expect them to ultimately defeat San Diego by 35 points?
No. No. This was completely unexpected. I figured it would be a close game. I figured both teams have pretty decent defenses. Both of the offenses are pretty good. They do like to throw the ball. Obviously, San Diego just refuses to run the ball, but that's their strategy. And that's what Arizona keyed in on. 4 interceptions by Nate Davis, 2 of them returned 4 touchdowns. And they know that he is a statue. I mean, they know him back from Duke City. They know him from San Diego. They know how to strategize against him. Does it always work? No, but it never does. They're 10-6 for a reason, San Diego is. So ultimately, it just came down to, can we throw Connor Taylor at him as many times as we can from a blitzing linebacker position, and then have the defensive backs cover long enough to force incompletions or ruin his timing? And it worked. Like I said, it doesn't always work that way, but Arizona came out with their freaking ears pinned back, and they got after him. They got after him quite a bit. They shut him out in 2 quarters and only allowed 23 points. It's a really, really dominating performance by Arizona.
Completely agree. I mean, you look at the stats there, 5 quarterback hits, 4 interceptions, another 5 breakups, 6 quarterback hits, 5 just by Connor Taylor, the man you mentioned a moment ago. Man, what a performance by this Arizona defense. Part of the reason why I thought San Diego was going to be more competitive in this game is they have a very talented pass rush, but they didn't seem to do much on defense in this game. And ultimately, they watched as Arizona imposed their will exactly how San Diego had hoped they would be able to do to Dalton Snead. So great game to watch, a lot of fun to watch. Not so fun if you bet on San Diego like I did, but it's okay. It's okay. It's the last time I'm going to bet in a long time. TJ, you're raising your hand. You bet on San Diego as well?
I really thought that they were going to pull off the upset.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, I don't know why. Like I said, I always compare Nate Davis to Peyton Manning, and one facet of Peyton Manning's game was that he didn't have much postseason success, and unfortunately, that is a comparison that is becoming all too apt for Nate Davis in the IFL. So hopefully he can turn that around and kind of find some more success in the postseason. But why don't you go ahead and give us your full thoughts on this game, TJ?
It was Arizona having the championship experience. San Diego, obviously they didn't play their best game. You got to think nerves definitely played a part in it. They're, in terms of a team, they're a young team. First real, success was this season in this, playoffs. So I don't want to say the lights got too bright for them, but it just really came down to, in my opinion, experience versus inexperience. But they're going to learn from this one, and next season they're going to come back ready to get back into the playoffs and make it right for the fans.
I certainly hope so. It wasn't lost on me to see how they built their team this year. There's a lot of guys out there that I was kind of surprised by. Over the years that I've watched San Diego, there's been a lot of players that I don't necessarily recognize name-wise. And I don't want to say that I know everybody, because obviously I don't. But at the same time, if there's a lot of rookies, a lot of players that you've never seen play indoor ball before or play at a higher level, it kind of piques your curiosity a little bit about how good they're going to be. But in this season coming in, I mean, they brought in Jaquan Artist, former XFL draft pick. He was in the CFL for a minute as well. You had Nate Davis, obviously former NFL draft pick, Arthur Jackson III, who's former USFL player for a brief moment, had a lot of success in the IFL in the past. VJ Malo, another great pass rusher. I mean, I really could go on for days on all the talent they had on this team, but it ultimately just didn't pan out. And sometimes it doesn't. One of the thoughts on this is that Taylor Genuser is a very, very young coach in his own right. So, he's going to be back. He's going to be back. Thank you, C-Dog, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Sorry about your loss this weekend. We were with you for the most part. Two of us here bet on the San Diego Strike Force, but definitely ultimately kind of ended in disappointment for us as well. But, you guys spoke on it a little bit ago. Nate Davis has had his struggles in this game, and he is a statue. Do we see Nate Davis come back in 2025 looking to still win that championship game long term? Let's go to Cody first.
I don't see why he wouldn't come back, but you got to think he's gone through his ACL injuries and been sidelined for a year or two. He's getting up there in age. I don't see why he wouldn't come back, but at the same time, when he was injured and he was coaching, was it Rudy Johnson? I don't think they had Demery Croft at that time. I think that's when they traded him to Duke City. But coaching Rudy Johnson up and kind of going through that stuff, or maybe it was when they had Demery Croft. I cannot remember for the life of me. But
Croft was traded for Nate Davis, just so you're aware.
Okay, that's what it was. And then I am blanking on who they had at quarterback when he was out for the year. No, I remember it was Duke City. My bad. It was Duke City. He had Ramon Atkins. That's who it was.
Correct.
And he was kind of just pretty much coaching him up. I could see him going into the coaching realm. I think he spoke on it before, how he wants to be a coach. It wouldn't surprise me if this is his final year. I don't think it will be, because every time we've counted him out, he's come back and put up numbers like what he just did this year. Borderline MVP style year. Look at the yardage and passing and stuff like that. But, interceptions kind of doomed him. And, hey, that's kind of a microcosm of what happened in just this game. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back, but I'm also honestly not shocked if he does hang it up and move into coaching.
that's definitely something that I've heard him discuss as well. I'm hoping that he does come back for at least one more season. I really would love to get him or see him get a ring before he ends his career. But yeah, if he's not a coach at some point, I would be shocked. He was basically the offensive coordinator for Duke City that season with Ramon Atkins there, and Atkins won a Rookie of the Year award for a reason. So I have a feeling he has a very bright future in coaching. C-Dog says he thinks he will stay. I think so too, and part of the reason is the way that Coach Jenny User, coaches him up. He basically allows him to run his offense, to do, how he sees fit at the line of scrimmage, and that's big for a quarterback who's a veteran, who knows what he's doing, who knows he can go in and put his team in the best position to win. And obviously this game did not end up in his favor, but Arizona had a great game plan. So, I mean, kudos to Arizona, Kevin Guy, who remains the winningest coach in arena football history. And maybe, just maybe, he'll end this season with a championship ring under his belt. Although, if anybody has something to say about that, it's Jawad Utim. If you didn't catch that, he was recently on our channel to discuss the IFL championship in 2025. So check that out as well. Any final thoughts on this game before we kind of to move on and then discuss the championship? All right, so it sounds like we will go ahead and move on to the championship game. Obviously, as just discussed, this will be a rematch of the 2021 United Bowl, where Massachusetts defeated Arizona and ended up taking home their first IFL championship. Do we see Massachusetts repeat that victory, or does Arizona enact their revenge on Massachusetts? Let's go to TJ first.
I would love to say I feel like the Pirates can pull it off, but there's something about the Rattlers. They just always seem to have that perfect answer for most teams when it matters the most. And I can guarantee that in Kevin Guy's mind, he is totally focused on that last championship game that he didn't win against them. So I think they're going to come out firing. I do think it's going to be a close game, probably I'll say probably maybe like high 30s, low 40s kind of game. But I just see the Arizona Rattlers, if they need that big play, if they need something to change the tide, they'll be the ones to do it, just because, again, of their experience, and Kevin Guy is their head coach. No disrespect to the Pirates, but it's just the Rattlers are hard out, and they've proven that time and time again, year and year again.
Completely agree. I mean, there's a reason why Kevin Guy has the record he has. Cody, who do you see winning this game? And don't spoil your preview, so don't give us everything.
Trust me, I'm not. Excuse me, I'm not spoiling anything. Thing we have to look at with both teams is they've both made the playoffs quite a bit. I think Massachusetts has made the playoffs every year that they've been in the Indoor Football League. Same thing with Arizona. So we got a lot of experience on both sides of the ball when it comes to playoff success and championship success. Preview that I have, just the quick little synopsis, is the Kevin Guy Redemption Tour makes their final stop in Vegas, and they hoist the trophy. I've been harping on Arizona all year. There have been plenty of teams that I have said that this is championship or bust, whether it's been Frisco, even Massachusetts. Arizona is that one. They live and die by the trophies. They have not had a trophy in a long time. They went out and got the former national championship game MVP. I'm not saying it's a dominating win, not one bit. It will be close. It will be defensive, but I think they will do something defensively, whether it is a pick six or two pick sixes or whatever. They will somehow get the job done, unless Massachusetts signs Garrett Hartley or some other former NFL kicker to kick a game-winning field goal, just like they did in the last championship.
Ooh.
Hey, you never know with Mass. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean,
flags fly forever. That's all I'm saying.
That's funny. That's funny. So Chris says the reason why we are here, why we are where is where we're. The reason why we are is where we at. is because all of our guys bought into the culture. Love to see Calvin Bundage talking about how great Tulsa is. Hope he is enjoying the playoffs. I think Mass will win, but I don't have my score prediction yet. Okay. Krish coming with the fire as usual. He's always got to remember and hold on to those receipts every chance he gets. So that's definitely funny to watch from him. But yeah, ultimately, I personally think that it's going to be a tough game for Massachusetts to win. I think Kevin Guy and Arizona are coming into this wanting to give everything they possibly can to win this game. I mean, if they were to lose again, talk about the rivalry that would be immediately built between, Massachusetts and Arizona going forward. Granted, they don't play each other much, but it would be interesting to kind of see how Kevin Guy would react to that, because he's kind of a fiery guy a little bit, and he's been very vocal on social media recently. So love to see that by him as well. I don't think Green Bay will make the playoffs next year personally. Interesting. Definitely a hot take a little bit there, but maybe you're right. Have you guys seen the betting odds for the IFL this week yet?
Not yet.
I cannot seem to find them at the moment.
Yeah, they're on DraftKings. Arizona's favored by 4.5.
By 1.5?
Yeah, Arizona's favored by 4.5, and I think the over/under is 86.5.
Okay. 86.5, and Arizona's favored by 4.5. How much do you think the proximity of Arizona to Vegas is affecting that pick on their part? You guys are a little bit better bettors than I am.
I don't really know if proximity. It could play kind of a home field advantage, but honestly, I think they're just looking at it from the standpoint of record. I mean, I don't really know how. Excuse me. I don't know how in depth the betting markets go for the Indoor Football League. They might just be looking at it as Arizona finished the season 10-6, so they're now 12-6, while Massachusetts is 10-8. So they're just kind of looking at it like that. I'm not sure.
Sorry, that would make sense to me, only because, like you said, they cover all these leagues. So, I mean, there's a lot to take in there. And I think some of these bets are kind of surface level. But I was wondering that because, obviously the drive from Arizona to Vegas is not terrible compared to the flight from Massachusetts to Vegas. So, I mean, I don't expect a whole lot of fans traveling with the Pirates to the game, but I do expect quite a few Arizona fans to be in attendance if there's not even, just a good amount of fans in Nevada that are already Arizona fans because of how long the Rattlers have been around. So that's another thing that I'm curious to see how it works out for them. TJ, what about you? What are your thoughts on ultimately the betting spread here that Cody just gave us?
I agree with Cody. They from just looking at the different lines and stuff throughout the entire season, they seem to kind of go just off face value of records. But one thing about Arizona's record is they start off the season kind of on a skid, and then they got hot throughout, and now they've won. They're on either a big winning streak or they've won majority of their games now in the past 2 months. So in reality, they are right now the better team on paper, and the proximity to in a neutral game, they definitely have the advantage for the quote unquote home field feel. But I think it's going to be that 4.5 line. I'm seeing it within probably a 1-score final, so that seems about right. But 86.5, that's really close for over under.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be an interesting championship game. I like that they left the bye week here, and I know this is different than 2021, like Jawad mentioned, but I think that bye week is important to kind of not only build hype for the championship game, but also let these teams get healthy. We all want to see the best possible players out there. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, I think Cody mentioned it, that Green Bay was extremely injured going into their conference championship game. And had they had that bye week, maybe we get a completely different, outcome there. But this is definitely a game where you want all the best players on the field. You want to hope that this bye week gives them the chance to get healthy and on the field for this game. And ultimately, you want to see both teams give their A-plus effort for the league. This is on broadcast television. We need this game to be very competitive and very entertaining for the casual fans that might catch it on CBS Sports. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is this not the last year that they'll be doing the championship game in Vegas so far?
From my understanding, when they did the championship contract or whatever, it was 3 years in Vegas, but then there was like another option to do CBS Sports Network. I don't know if they've redone the contract to go back to Vegas for next year. I could be wrong on that. That's the way I interpreted it, was they're in Vegas for 3 years, this one being the final of the 3, but then they signed on for another year of CBS Sports. So I think the championship game next year will be on CBS Sports, but I don't think they have a venue locked down yet. I might be wrong there too.
I think you're correct on that. If that's why I want to say this was the 3rd year, first of all, and second of all, that I thought that it was only a 3-year agreement with the Dollar Loan Center for their championship game. Although I believe you're correct on the option as well. So it wouldn't shock me at all to see them go back to Dollar Loan. Obviously a great venue, somewhat centralized in the middle of the country. For most teams, it's not terrible travel unless you're Massachusetts. But yeah, other than that, I think it's a pretty good venue, and then also it's very presentable on TV. So that's a big factor here if you're keeping that CBS Sports partnership moving on into the future, which I believe they are. I believe, like you said, next year would be year 3 for that as well, if I'm not mistaken. Any final thoughts or anything we need to get to? Any big news that I'm missing? Before we get out of here, let's go to TJ first.
I can't wait to catch the TAL championship tonight. Should be a good one.
Definitely. So yeah, if you want to catch that game, make sure you tune in to the Arena League on YouTube. Completely free, does not cost you a dime to watch the game, and in turn, it helps support the league and helps them see where they're headed into the future. So if you're an indoor football fan like the rest of us, make sure you tune in tonight and watch the Duluth Harbor Monsters host the Iowa Woo. Cody, any final thoughts for you? All righty. Well, we appreciate everybody who tuned in today. It looked like we had a pretty solid audience all show long. We always appreciate you guys coming in. We appreciate the comments as well. All you guys watching in the background that are not commenting, we're definitely going to have to change that. So come prepared with questions next week, damn it. On that note, we will catch you guys next week, Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern time, and I swear I'll be on time next week.